There's an interesting new show on, and it's quite revealing and very interesting. It actually traces back mainly African Americans back to their area that's in Africa and where they actually came from in the slave trade. But he has information in his databases for many more places. But this information here will show you that black people weren't Hebrews or anything other than just West African people, but it shows you where they come from and where they might go. And there's a few interesting little stories in here. It's just rather quick. I'll break in on each one of them because I've seen each one in the show. So,
hate us because they ain't us.
Exactly. They hate us because they ain't us. That's a great saying, okay?
A pioneering geneticist and the founder of AfricanAncestry.com, Rick has spent his career trying to bridge the genealogical chasm of slavery. How does the genetic science work?
We look at two genetic systems that are inherited from either the mother or the father. Those genetic systems, which is the Y chromosome and mitochondrial DNA, are passed on unchanged, meaning they're identical every generation. So the ancestor is no longer there, but there are people in the present-day population who share that genetic information from the ancestor.
Rick gathered a large database of DNA samples taken from living members of the ethnic groups most highly represented in the transatlantic slave trade. He can search this database to look for genetic matches between an African American and an African. And a match means that these two people are distant cousins.
Let's say that the match came back 100% Mende. That would mean that the sequence that we received from the African American was an identical sequence to a Mende individual in our database. There's a common ancestor there.
That means
that means that you have an ancestor that actually is so direct that your great, 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 great grandfather or grandmother, depending on which set they're looking at, the Y chromosome or mitochondrial, would actually be directly attached to that person. In other words, that would be yours and that person that's standing there in that continent's exact ancestor. Many times they'll show you a blend of two. One will be stronger than the other. One will be extremely stronger than the other, and so on. And what this is say that you had a great, great, great grandfather that was a Bantu and a person from Ghana. Then he would come up 50-50. But to keep that 50-50, you'd have to keep doing Ghana, Bantu, Ghana, Bantu, Ghana, Bantu, Ghana, Bantu. It wouldn't, you'd get off of that ratio. Well, so if your great 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 grandmother was a Bantu and the rest of them were all Ghana, then you'd have a small portion Ghana, big Bantu. Or say you had Bantu and Ghana and then went 2 generations with that hybrid versus something else, like say actually Nigerian, right? Then you would show up to be stronger Nigerian and smaller Bantu, smaller Ghana, but you would have a half Bantu, quarter type effect going on. And there's little mixes that can go all on in this too, and they can actually see which one kind of came before the other one as a way of indicating true origin versus something that happens later. Let's look at this, though. It's very interesting.
That if you share similar enough Y or mitochondrial DNA with a member of the Mende people today, then it's quite likely that your ancestor on this particular line had been a Mende before they were sold into slavery.
Are the same people that are in that exact area.
I asked Rick to run DNA samples
Perhaps
through
they
a
moved.
database from some of the other African American guests in the.
And people always say that there's only white people doing this stuff and they're making white DNA and all these things and stuff. Look, this man here is a black geneticist. You can send your stuff to him through this TV show and he will tell you where exactly he came from. You came from. Anyone who sends him DNA, where they came from through their database. And if he ever finds somebody that's connected to God and Jesus and Hebrews, he'll let you know.
Series to see what it would tell us about their origins across the Atlantic.
So he looks up people from the show. And this is the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, Cory
You heard of
Booker.
Sinke and the Amistad?
Yes.
They were the Mende. And so are you.
That's amazing to me. Amazing to me.
Also, though, his great-grandmother was white. Or, yeah, I think on this one, I've watched that one before. It's like his great-grandmother's white. If you look, he has grayish eyes, too, and very Caucasian skin, very Caucasian features. And yet, even though he's only one, I don't know what it is, sixth white, and the rest is majorly Mende, he carries that same trait. Now, he himself will tell you that I think his sister, if I remember this show correctly, is darker, much darker than he. But yet he is light, just like the man that's behind the camera or the narrator guy is. And he also knows that he's had some cross that's into him. It's unnatural for a black person to be this light. I mean, you've got to do some Michael Jackson stuff to get there, or have someone in the woodpile. And, he has a very Derek Jeter look to him right there. So you know that mix that can bring about that type of look. But the black person that's the main component of that was Mende.
Tribe? Mindy?
The Mende people from Sierra Leone.
They were fighters?
And lovers.
Lovers.
And
Well, I prefer being a lover than a fighter.
Well, I don't know why he instantly went to fighter, but perhaps there's some history I'm not aware of where Sierra Leone would indicate a large amount of trouble or turmoil. I know it was much, much later in history, but it would have been way after the slave trade. And you can see his look. And so he is very much more Mende. And I don't believe he actually has any white people genetics inside of him. And so you could take somebody like that and have a white ancestor and get somebody that looks more like your one on your left, and have crosses that go on. Yeah.
Can you read what it says? It says Gabriel.
Branford Marsalis.
Shake and Kota.
Shake
I
and
have to go
Kota.
find the Shake people. You got it. I'm going.
Great musician. Caught that at the wrong second right there, but man, great musician. Now check this out.
You share maternal genetic ancestry with the Tikar people in Cameroon.
Very interesting. I thought that it might be to Ghana, because the Ghanaians thought that facially I looked like maybe I'd been some mixture of Ashanti and European.
That was about the time Ghana applied for $1 billion loan from George Bush, wasn't it?
You think it may have been part of the story, right?
They're doing their own.
Yeah, I'm sure that was something that they tried to bump at her and everything, that she must be part European and part Ashanti. And of course they said that she was from there, but whenever they do the test, they find that she's sole straight African, no Caucasian DNA or European.
Own genealogy. Look like Ashanti to me.
Yeah, trying to
It
get
makes me
there.
want to go to Cameroon, meet my people.
Yep,
Yes.
now she knows she's Cameroon.
You
Samuel
share
L. Jackson.
ancestry with the Benga people in the modern country of Gabon.
Now they're famous for tigers, and Benga is famous for its fish that are right off its coast. There are fish that are named for that area, and some of the coastal people there, whenever the people originally came and caught the fish with using them as guides, named the fish for them. And even in the fish world, they utilize some of their names. But they're not all coastal people. You saw the way that that's shaped and it runs up, but they do have an attachment to the coast. Now they would fish, but they didn't actually have a seaworthy boat. But they would fish, and they would get up on these sticks. They go out in the water, and they put at low tide. They put these sticks, these totems, with a little cross pad onto them, and they go out there during the higher tide, climb up onto the stick, sit up on the stick like a soul sitter, and wait for the fish. And they either spear them, or they, in modern times now, utilize nets and everything in the same way. But you can even see people lined up down the beaches, and they know where the fish collect at. and they'll have people come out in the water and make noise and chase them a little that way, and it gives them an advantage. Watch the video on it. Anyhow.
That means your Kunta Kinte ancestor came from right there.
Wow. Get out of here. I have to Google Gabon immediately and see what's there.
So, you too can send in your DNA and find out. And men, I just want to mention something here. Most white people that I know, some may get very lucky, but most white people that I know can't go back straight up a tree more than a couple of generations around a great granddad. They lose it too. And from that point on, they only have one ancestor who they knew the granddad of that, and so on. So it ends up going up some mother's tree and not even your family name anymore, and goes up to zilch. And you send away your stuff, and for $110 they tell you that you used to be Scottish nobility or some bullshit. But they'll tell that to anybody. And what's odd about it is I've done one, and my brother's done one, and they say the same thing at the end, but the middle part's all different off of different things. And mine actually mentions a street that's named off of us and all this type of stuff. But, man, your last name, there's a street in America named after you too. And they come off with this bullshit, and I don't know how much truth there is in it. One thing there is truth in: genetics. It'll tell you where people are and where things actually came from and what your percentage is. I mean, I believe I'm Scotch Welsh and Welsh Irish, but if I did my DNA, might find out that I'm a whole lot more European and half. Y'all enjoy. Like it if you like. Enjoy and sub. And hey, anybody really wants to know their true DNA and where they come from, this man has the largest database of West Africans to go off of. It'd be a great thing to connect into. And if you watch the show, they do great people. They do Lionel Richie. They do, everybody that wants to get involved with it and see. And it's amazing, some of the people and some of the results and the information that they find, that they dig up, that in doing our family tree, no professional person was able to dig up. So these people have real pro investigators going through microfiche tapes, finding all kinds of neat stuff. Anyhow, enjoy. Like if you like it. Appreciate y'all. Peace.